Bonjour les amis Brown. Beautiful day here in sunny Gananoque. And we're getting on to part 3 of Mice and Men. The book actually isn't chaptered. I know I've been writing chapters, but it's actually just divided into parts that don't even say parts. It's just, he sort of stops writing and starts again where it sort of makes sense. So that's how it's divided in case you're ever reading ahead or asking about it later on. Coffee. Right now through this tree there's just the sun, and it's going to be right there beaming down on me until about the time I'm finished reading. And then it will be shady here. But, oh well, here we go. Part 3, Chapter 3, or whatever you call it. Although there was evening brightness showing through the windows of the bunkhouse, inside it was dusk. Through the open door came the thuds and occasional clangs of a horseshoe game, and now and then the sound of voices raised in approval or derision. Slim and George came into the darkening bunkhouse together. Slim reached up over the card table and turned on the tin-shaded electric light. Instantly, the table was brilliant with light, and the cone of the shade threw its brightness straight downward, leaving the corners of the bunkhouse still in dusk. Slim sat down on a box, and George took his place opposite. "It wasn't nothing," said Slim. "I would have had to drown most of them anyways. No need to thank me about that." George said, "It wasn't much to you, maybe, but it was a hell of a lot to him. Jesus Christ. I don't know how we're going to let him sleep and get him to sleep in here. He'll want to be sleeping out in the barn with him. We'll have trouble keeping him from getting right in the box with them pups." "That wasn't nothing," Slim repeated. "Say, you're sure right about him. Maybe he ain't bright, but I ain't never seen such a worker. He damn near killed his partner, Buck and Barley. There ain't nobody can keep up with him. God almighty. I swear I never seen such a strong guy." George spoke proudly. "Just tell Lenny what to do, and he'll do it. He ain't good at figuring, but he can sure take orders." There was a clang of horseshoe iron stakes outside and a little cheer of voices. Slim moved back slightly to the light. So the light was not on his face. "It's funny how you string them along together." It was Slim's calm invitation to confidence. "What's funny about it?" George demanded, suddenly defensive. "Oh, I don't know. Hardly none of these guys ever travel together. I hardly see two of them together. You know how the hands are. They just come in here, get their bunk, work for a month, and then quit and go out alone. Never seem to give a damn about nobody. It just seems kind of funny. Funny that a smart little guy like you and him is traveling together." "He ain't no cuckoo," said George. "He's dumb as hell, but he ain't crazy. And I ain't so bright neither, or I wouldn't be bucking barley for $50 a month. If I was bright, even a little bit smarter, I'd have my own little place, and I'd be bringing in my own crops, instead of doing the work for someone else." George fell silent. He wanted to talk. Slim neither encouraged nor discouraged him. He just sat back quiet and receptive. Slim's a good listener, eh? "It ain't so funny, him and me going round together," George continued. "Him and me was both born in Auburn. I know his Aunt Clara. She took him when he was a baby and raised him up. When Aunt Clara died, Lenny and me just come out working. Got kind of used to each other after a while." Said Slim. George looked over at Slim and saw the calm, godlike eyes fastened on him. "It's funny," said George. "I used to have a hell of a lot of fun with him. I used to play jokes on him because he was too dumb to know him himself. But then, sometimes he was too dumb to even know a joke was played on him. I had fun. Made me seem goddamn smart alongside him. Why, he'd do anything I damn told him to. If I told him to walk off a cliff, over he'd go. That wasn't so damn fun after a while. He never got mad about it neither. I beat the hell out of him. He could have busted every bone in my body, just in one of his hands, but he never lifted a finger against me." George's voice was taking on the tone of a confession. "I'll tell you what maybe stopped that. One day a bunch of guys was standing up around Sacramento River. I was feeling pretty smart. I turns to Lenny and I said, 'Jump in,' and he jumps. He can't swim neither. Can't swim a damn stroke. He near drowned before we could get him. And he was so damn nice for me for pulling him out. Clean forgot I told him to jump in. Well, I ain't done anything like that no more." "He's a nice fella," said Slim. Guys don't need no sense to be a nice fella. Seems to me it just sort of works the other way around. Take a real smart guy, he ain't hardly ever a nice fella." George stacked the scattered cards and began to lay out a solitaire hand. The shoes thudded on the ground outside, as the window lights of the evening still made the window squares bright. I ain't got no people, George said. I seen the guys that go around in the ranches alone. They ain't no good. They don't have no fun. After a long time, they get mean. They get wanting to fight all the time. Yeah, they do get mean, Slim agreed. They get so they don't want to talk to nobody. Of course, Lenny's a goddamn nuisance for most of the time, said George. But you get used to going around with a guy, and then you can't get rid of him. Kinda how it worked out. He ain't mean, said Slim. I can tell. Lenny ain't a bit mean. Of course he ain't mean. He gets in all the trouble all the time because he's so goddamn dumb. Like what happened up in Weed. He stopped, right in the middle, and turned over a card. He looked alarmed and peered over at Slim. Sim, you won't tell nobody, will you? No, of course you wouldn't. What'd he do in Weed? Slim asked again. Well, he sees this here girl in a red dress. Dumb bastard likes it, wants to touch it. You know how he is about soft things. He just wants to feel it, so he reaches out to feel the red dress. And this girl lets out a squawk. And that Lenny gets all mixed up. And he holds on, because that's the only thing he'd think to do. Well, this girl squawks and squawks and squawks. I was just a little bit off, and I heard all the yelling, so I come running. By that time, Lenny's so scared, all he thinks he can do is just to hold on. I socked him over the head with a picket fence to make him let go. He was so scared, he couldn't let go of the dress. And he's so damn strong, you know. Slim's eyes were level and unwinking. He nodded very slowly. So what happens? George carefully built his line out of solitaire cards. Well, the girl rabbits in and tells the law how she'd been raped. The guys in Weed start getting a party ready to lynch Lenny. So we sit in the irrigation ditch underwater all the rest of that day. Got on your heads sticking out from the side of the ditch. And that night we scrammed out of there, came down here. Slim sat in silence for a moment. Didn't hurt the girl none though, eh? He finally asked. Hell no. He just scared her. I'd be scared too if he grabbed me. But he never hurt her. He just wanted to touch that red dress. Just the same as he wants to touch all them puppies. Same as he wants with them rabbits. He ain't mean, said Slim. I can tell a mean guy a mile off. Of course he ain't mean. He'll do any damn thing Lenny came through the door. He wore his denim coat over his shoulders like a cape, and he walked, hunched. Hi, Lenny, said George. How do you like the pups now? Lenny said breathlessly, Oh, he's brown and white, just like I wanted. He went directly to the bunk and lay down and turned his face to the wall and drew up his knees. George put his cards down very deliberately. Lenny, he said sharply. Lenny twisted his neck and looked over at George. Huh? What do you want, George? I told you you can't bring a pup in here. What pup, George? I ain't got no pup. George went quickly over to him, grabbed him by the shoulder and rolled him over. He reached down and picked up the tiny puppy from where Lenny had it, concealed against his stomach. Lenny sat up quickly. Give him to me, George, George said. You ain't got the right to take this pup. You can't take it yet. It's got to sleep with its mother. You want to kill him? He was just born last night, and you take him out of the nest. You take him right back now, or I'll tell Slim not to let you have him. Lenny held out his hands pleadingly. Oh, give him to me, George. I'll take him back. I didn't mean no harm, George. Honestly, I didn't. I just wanted to pet him a little. George handed the pup to him. All right. You get him back there quick. And don't you take him out no more. You'll kill him first thing you know, Lenny. Lenny scuttled out of the room. Slim had not moved. His calm eyes followed Lenny out the door. Jesus, he said. He's just like a kid, isn't he? Sure, he's just like a kid. Ain't no more harm in him than a kid neither, except he's so strong. I bet he won't even come here and sleep tonight. He'll sleep right on that box in the barn. Well, I'll let him. He ain't gonna do no harm outside there. It was almost dark now. Old Candy the Swamper came in and went to his bunk, and behind him struggled his old dog. Hello, Slim. Hello, George. Didn't either of you play horseshoes? I don't like to play 'em every night, said Slim. Candy went on. Either you guys got a slug of whiskey? I got a gut ache. I ain't, said Slim. I'd drink it myself if I had, and I ain't got a gut ache either. Got a bad gut ache, said Candy. Them goddamn turnips do it to me every time. I knowed they was gonna, before I even eat them. The thick-bodied Carlson came in out of the darkness. He walked to the end of the bunkhouse and turned on the second shaded light. Darker than hell in here. Man, that black fella sure can pitch them horseshoes. He's plenty good, said Slim. Damn right he is, said Carlson. He don't give nobody a chance to win. He stopped and sniffed the air. Still sniffing. Ah! God almighty, that dog stinks. Get him out of here, Candy. I don't know nothing stinks as bad as an old dog. You gotta get him out. Candy rolled to the edge of his bunk. He reached over and patted the ancient dog, and he apologized. I've been around him so much, I never noticed how much he stinks. Well, I can't stand him in here, said Carlson. The stink hangs around even after he's gone. He walked over with his heavy-legged stride and looked down at the dog. Got no teeth? He's stiff with rheumatism. He ain't no good to you, Candy. And he ain't no good to himself. Why don't you shoot him, Candy? The old man squirmed uncomfortably. Well, hell, I had him so long. Had him since he was a pup. I herded sheep with him, he said proudly. You wouldn't think of it now, but he was the best damn sheepdog I ever had. George said, I seen a guy in Weed that had an Airedale could herd sheep. Learned it from the other dogs. Carlson was not to be put off. Look, Candy, this old dog just suffers himself all the time. If you was to take him out back and shoot him right in the back of the head right here, he pointed, you'd never know what hit him. Candy looked about unhappily. No, he said softly. No, I couldn't do that. I had him too long. He don't have no fun, Carlson insisted, and he stinks to beat all hell. Tell you what, I'll shoot him for you. Then it won't be you that does it. What do you guys think of that? I'll shoot him for you. Then it won't be you that does it. Candy threw his legs off the bunk and he scratched the white stubble on his whiskers, his cheek nervously. I'm so used to him, he said softly. I had him from a pup. Well, you ain't been kind to keep him alive, said Carlson. Look, Slim's dog's got a litter right now. I bet Slim would give you one of them pups to raise up, wouldn't you, Slim? The Skinner had been studying the old dog with his calm eyes. Yeah, he said. You can have a pup if you want to. He seemed to shake himself free for speech. Carl's right, Candy. That dog ain't no good to himself. I wish somebody shot me if I was old and crippled like that. Candy looked helplessly at him. For Slim's opinions were the law. Maybe it hurt him, he suggested. I don't mind taking care of him. Carlson said, You gotta shoot him. He wouldn't feel nothing. I put the gun right there. He pointed with his toe at the back of the head. He wouldn't even quiver. Candy looked up for help from face to face, but found none. It was clear and dark outside. A young laboring man came in. His sloping shoulders were bent forward, and he walked heavily on his heels, as though he carried an invisible bag of grain. Then he picked up a pulp magazine from his shelf and brought it to the light over the table. Did I show you this, Slim? He asked. Show me what? So a pulp magazine is like it's like a magazine with a whole bunch of stories in it. Pulp Fiction, that movie, that's what it's referring to, like magazines in the 30s and 40s. Steinbeck used to write for them, and so did Jack London, Call of the Wild. Okay. It was published in one of those originally. All full of stories. Did I show you this, Slim? The young man asked. Show me what? The young man turned to the back of the magazine. He put it down on the table and pointed with his finger. Right there. Read that. Slim bent over. Go on, said the young man. Read it aloud. Dear editor, Slim read slowly. I read your mag for 6 years, and I think it is the best on the market. I like stories by Peter Rand. I think he is a wingding. Give us more like The Dark Rider. I don't write many letters. Just thought I would tell you I think your mag is the best dimes worth ever spent. Slim looked up questioningly. Why'd you want me to read that for? Whit said, Go on, read the name at the bottom. Slim read, Yours for success, William Tenner. He glanced up at Whit again. I don't get it. Whit closed the magazine impressively. Don't you remember old Bill Tenner? He worked here for about 3 months ago. Slim thought, the little guy? Yes, drove the cultivator? That's him. Whit cried, that's the guy. Do you think he's the guy who wrote the letter? I know it. Bill and me was here one day. Bill had one of them books that just come. He was looking at it, he says, I wrote a letter. Wonder if they'll put it in the book. But it wasn't there the next time. Bill says, maybe they're saving it for later. And that's just what they done. I guess you're right, said Slim. Gotta hear right the book. George held his hand for the magazine. Let me have a look at it. Whit found the place again. He did not surrender his hold of it, and he pointed to the letter with a forefinger. Then he went to his box shelf and laid the magazine carefully in. I wonder if old Bill's seen it, he said. Bill and me worked the patch of field peas, run cultivators, both of us. Bill was a hell of a nice fella. During the conversation, Carlson had refused to be drawn in. He continued to look at the old dog. Candy watched him uneasily. At last, Carlson said, If you want me to do it, I'll put the old devil out of his misery. Right now, get it over with. Ain't nothing left for him. Can't eat, can't see, can't even walk without hurting. Candy said hopefully, You ain't got no gun. Hell I ain't. I got a Luger. It won't hurt him none at all. Candy said, Maybe tomorrow. Let's wait till tomorrow. I don't see no reason for it, said Carlson. He went to his bunk, pulled a bag from underneath it, and took out a Luger pistol. Let's get it over with, he said. We can't sleep here with this stinking around all the time. He put the pistol in his hip pocket. Candy looked a long time at Slim to try to find some kind of reversal, but Slim gave none. At last, Candy said softly and hopelessly, All right. Take him. That's my dog barking. Mirt. Lie down. Good girl. See if she does. Might have to go untie her. Slim gave none. At last, Candy said softly and hopelessly, All right. Take him. He did not look down at the dog at all. He lay back on his bunk, crossed his arms behind his head, and stared at the ceiling. From his pocket, Carlson took a little leather thong. He looped it over and tied it around the old dog's neck. All the men except Candy watched him. Come on, boy. Come on now, he said gently. And he said apologetically to Candy, He won't even feel it now. Candy did not move or answer him. He pulled on the leash. Come on, boy. Come on. The old dog got up slowly and stiffly to his feet and followed the gently pulling leash. Slim said, Carlson. Yeah. You know what to do? What do you mean, Slim? Take a shovel. Oh, yeah, sure, I get you. He led the dog out into darkness. George followed to the door and shut the door, set the latch firmly in place. Candy lay rigidly on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Slim said loudly, One of my lead mules got a bad hoof. I gotta go put some tar on it. His voice trailed off. It was silent outside. Carlson's footsteps died away. Silence came into the room, and the silence lasted. George chuckled. I bet Lenny's right out there right now in the barn with his pups. He won't want to come in here now that he's got a pup. Slim said, Candy, you can have any one of those pups you want, man. Candy did not answer. The silence fell in the room, again. It came out of the night and invaded. George said, Anybody want to play a little euchre? I'll play one with you, said Whit. They took places opposite each other at the table under the light, but George did not shuffle the cards. He rippled the edge of the deck nervously. The little snapping noise drew the eyes of all the men in the room, so he stopped doing it. The silence fell in the room again. A minute passed, and another minute. Candy lay still, staring at the ceiling. Slim gazed at him for a moment and then looked down at his hands. He subdued one hand with the other, held it down. There came a little gnawing sound from underneath the floor, and all the men looked down toward it. Only Candy continued to stare at the ceiling. Sounds like there's a little rat under there, said George. We ought to get a trap down there. Whit broke out. What the hell's taking him so long? Lay out some cards, won't you? We ain't got all day to play euchre. George brought the cards together tightly and steadied the backs of them. The silence was in the room again. A shot sounded in the distance. The men looked quickly at the old man, every head turned toward him. For a moment, he continued to stare at the ceiling, and then he rolled slowly over and faced the wall, and lay silent. Pause it there for part 1.